Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming back and joining us in this video. We have the one and only Xavier Ayral back with us. Xavier, it's great to have you back, mon ami. It's been quite a few weeks since we last spoke.
Hello, Marky boy. How are you, laddie?
All good, thank you. Great to have you back on. You're going to have to get us up to speed because I have been away on pilgrimage to Medjugorje for the sixth time, in that little bubble of grace and constant prayer and everything else that comes with it. And I've come back into the big bad world. And although I have the great peace as always, there's many things happening and moving, and I know you've already spoke elsewhere about it, but I was thinking maybe for this video, as we're so close to the time, of what's going on with all this chatter about the solar eclipse, but not just about the solar eclipse of April 8th, it's all the coincidences that's picking up with it. I would say I was looking at research from those within the faith, the Catholic Church, the NASA stuff, the red heifers in Israel. And then everything else that's building up where we know something's coming. And maybe then finish on the good high note that why we've nothing to worry about because our Blessed Mother is getting everything prepared for the triumph of the Immaculate Heart. The reigning of God's will on earth, please God, that's where it'll be. So if we can maybe go along there, if that sounds all right with you.
Oh, but of course. First, allow me to say hello to the Maclean clan back home in Scotland, and also to your charming and lovely grandmother. Just hello to everyone from Scotland-loving Frenchmen. So hello to everyone there. And yeah, in regard to on this side of the pond, it appears the Americans are on high alert. First of all, this past few days on Friday of last week, we had something quite extraordinary, 4.7, 4.8 earthquake in New Jersey and on the borders of New York City. An earthquake of this magnitude in that area of the Northern American hemisphere is somewhat uncanny. So the Americans are wondering with everything now is orbiting around this eclipse that is due to take place tomorrow. So, and this this eclipse will start crossing the United States, principally from Texas, from a city called Jonah. Incredibly, Jonah, and will cross about, I don't remember whether it's 6 or 7 towns and cities that are called Nineveh.
Mm.
From and it's going to go from Texas northeast until it reaches New England and goes up to the Atlantic. So the Americans have already mobilized 19,000 National Guards in different areas of the pass where the moon will pass and the eclipse will pass by, which is equivalent to a little over an entire division of infantry in today's modern age. Now, we don't understand why, no true explanation has been given, but everyone is on the brouhaha, bras, as we say in French, on high alert and losing a little bit their minds. Millions of small glasses to protect one's eyes against the sun are being distributed and sold. And what's more, now everything that is happening in that area of time is being discussed, particularly on all American Catholic circles. One of which being the situation in Europe right now, which merits our attention in regards to a potential Third World War, with the illustrious French president, renowned brainwave President Emmanuel Macron, who is pushing as hard as he can his European allies to join him in a commitment to send boots on the ground in Ukraine without caring for a moment of the consequences, not only for the European continent, but for the entire world. It appears that Norway has declared to be open to the idea if the integrity of other nations of NATO be compromised to send troops as well. So it's a iffy 50-50. Finland has definitely said they would be open to the notion, and of course all the Baltic states and Poland, although Poland, I think more in diplomatic terms, However, we got a categorical 9 from Germany and a major no from both Madrid and Rome. The Americans have been also very clear. There is no way on earth that the Americans will send an American boys in Ukraine simply out of fear of creating an incident which would lead straight to World War III. And finally, tomorrow, and I'm sure you must have heard it even before I did, there will be the release from the illustrious uh, author of the obscene 2 books he was known for in Buenos Aires, Argentina, Cardinal Fernandez, today prefect of the Congregation of the Doctrine of the Faith. He will release a new document called Dignitas Infinita, which after the Fiducies Supplicans should be truly, you could say, another poem of sort. This one, according to rumors, would implicate the fact that Catholic priests and the Catholic world ought to consider also acceptable in good standing men and women of all sorts that would change gender. I mean, those are just rumors, of course, and communion should be bestowed upon them and blessings. And it's a continuation, shall we say, of, um, well, of the first one, Fiducia Supplicans, which,
Mhm.
as you well know, is a document that was released on the birthday of Pope Francis, which gives permission now to priests to give blessings to couples that are not in good standing with the Catholic Church, particularly homosexual couples and couples that have been divorced and remarried. So it appears that this Dignitas Infinita is going to be a continuation or an addendum of sort to this lovely piece of work, which in every sort of way is nothing short but a contradiction of the deposit of the faith and a new interpretation to the teachings of Christ and of the Roman Catholic and Apostolic Church.
Yeah, there's a lot of signs and wonders coming along from the pontificate at the beginning of Francis, where I've covered some videos on that already. From the meteors with Argentina and Russia, the lightning strike at the Vatican when Benedict retired, and then the one in Argentina with the St. Peter being damaged, the statue at the lightning strike in his former diocese or so around about there. But for me, with this solar eclipse, Xavier, I think it's going to just be like any other eclipse that we've seen in the world. It's just going to come and it's going to go. People will go on with a normal day. They realize all the hype, the sensationalism was probably for what? For nothing. However, as much as I believe that would likely to be the case, there's always a surprise it might not be. But I think it's going to be an eclipse to see and remember, and then get on with your life, get on with your day. But I think it's also silly not to discern the signs of the times. And as I always say to people, even Jesus rebuked the apostles for not taking up the signs of the times. And with the many signs already coming before, now on tomorrow, how many more? We were told NASA launching rockets that's to do with the Egyptian deities. We've got the red heifers at Israel getting spoken about. We have the Nineveh and Jonah thing for me stands out a lot because the 2017 uh, eclipse going from west to east America was going over the towns of Salem, which is for peace. But now we're
Mhm.
getting into the point where we're going from Jonah through Nineveh, whether it's 2, 3, or 7. We know it's going along that path, and there are many. And again, it's the feast day of the Annunciation. It's the day after Divine Mercy Sunday, which is today in the point of this recording. And as Jesus says to Saint Faustina, "Before I come as the just judge, I first come as the merciful King." And he does speak early on in the diary that the lights will be out in the heavens and the sky. So again, is this part of the warning when that comes? But how do you put this in as signs of the times? Is God communicating to America only or to the world, or should we just enjoy the solar eclipse, go on with our day?
Ugh. That's a good question. I think there is a fine line between faith, science, and also superstition. No, in this instance, there are a lot of factors that are very difficult to ignore. No, in response to your question, is it addressed to the Americans or to the world? It appears to me with this line that goes straight through Jonah and then Nineveh, 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 Nineveh. The message appears, even if it doesn't come from God. It's always a good message. Convert, convert again before it's too late. Now, um, look, in the Bible, our faith relies as well on astronomical and events that takes place in the heavens. We don't have to look very far. The birth of Christ, the star of Bethlehem, no? Which led, among others, the three magi straight to the nativity scene. That was a movement that was foretold as well in Holy Scriptures, in that it would be the compass that would lead the faithful to the birthplace of the Christ. In Fatima, 1917, the version was very clear when she talked about the arboreolis that would be defining the time as a sign when the Second World War would soon thereafter take place. That's exactly what happened. Even Adolf Hitler was aware of this particular prophecy and had his scientists look for these arboreolis, which took place shortly before the Anschluss in Austria, which was the last event, the last peaceful takeover of a nation by Adolf Hitler before the invasion of Poland, which started on September 1st, 1939, if memory serves. England and France declared war 2 days later. So, that being said, God uses every possible means at his disposal, and why not? He is the master of the universe. He's God. If he chooses to send a message, such as the one of the eclipse, who are we to say no? No. But this instance of the eclipse, again with this Jonah, it's very odd. It's truly odd. And if it is meant for anyone, I would say first and foremost for the United States. Then, to a second degree, I would say to the world. We just discussed a moment ago what's happening in Europe. This is a powder case that awaits only a sparkle to explode. We are that close.
Mm.
I think you being European and I as well, we understand each other. We know it's true. It's not an
Yeah.
exaggeration. The war in the Palestine, in Israel, in the Gaza Strip, now with the West Bank. Now Hezbollah is starting to attack severely the northern towns of northern Israel. Have you watched the news? It's ghastly. We're going straight towards a wall, and nobody, and I mean nobody, wants to stop it. All the heads of state, at a couple of exceptions, are all for it. They are throwing more oil in the fire. No diplomatic attempts to try to dissuade or one party or the other, or to try to calm the situation down. There is not one. For the Middle East, I think we discussed it on the last show, you and I. The Middle East conflict serves everyone's purpose, everyone, no exception. You remember, Israel, they have a magnificent now pretext to bash on the Palestinians to the maximum of their ability, gain possibly more territories, and finally, eventually, even come up with a reason or excuse to build a third temple, either on Mount Sinai or close by. The Muslims, remember, just before the Hamas did their attack in October of last year, the Muslims were divided. Saudi Arabia was about to sign a treaty, a diplomatic treaty of approachment with Israel at the great displeasure of the Shiites and Sunnites, the Saudi Arabians and the Wahhabites. So they were about to do an approachment with Israel. This entire Hamas ordeal stopped that very quickly. Now all of the Muslim different denominations are totally joined by the hip now against Israel and their allies.
Mm.
No? And for the Americans and the allies, the Europeans, no, Today, I'm terribly concerned as a Frenchman, and sorry to say that the West has been looking for a pretext to stop one way or the other the uranium enrichment that the Iranians have been developing for the past few years. This is a perfect reason now to bomb their nuclear industry and send them back to the Stone Age. So again, it serves everyone's purpose, and if Russia's as well. Now, if there is a war with Iran, it's going to reinforce their ties with such a country, and this is not good. It serves everyone's purpose. I don't see optimist result out of all this entire situation. I don't know what you think, Mark.
Yeah, there's so many moving parts now, it's hard to keep up with. And like I say, I've been away for it from a week and I haven't missed it. Now, when you're in that state of grace and pilgrimage, you just don't care what's going on in the world because that focus is there in the Lord, which we might come back to. But again, before forgetting, the Jonah Nineveh thing seems to be on repeat now because 2019 was it? Sister Sasagawa, the nun from Akita who gave us the dire warning from Our Lady in the 1970s. Her guardian angel appears to her for the first time in what, half a century or so? And it's the read Jonah, read Nineveh, put on sackcloth, repent for your church. Days later, we have the Pachamama worshipping in the Vatican. Within days after that, or so, several weeks, we have COVID breaking out, and then everything that comes with that. So now we're seeing signs in the sky with an eclipse, Jonah and Nineveh again, and also comes at the Feast of the Annunciation, which has obviously been moved with the church calendar from March 25th due to Holy Week and things. But Jonah on that town I did in my previous video, it had certain different names until it had the formal name Jonah in 1884. And as soon as I saw that year, that's the year Pope Leo the 13th had his mystical vision where God granted Satan the century to test the church and humanity. Just another coincidence amongst the 20 plus other coincidences. So I'm just firing all that into context there for people. Leave the comments and give us your own thoughts. But with all that being said and more, we could probably go on about it. The one thing that still stands for me is Marie-Julie Jahenny. You know, the years 80, 83 in your theory. I'm 100% with you on that for all that we have to work with. When the long reigning English Queen passes, the new sovereign on the throne will see the relationship between the UK, Israel, and Persia disintegrate. And of course, Persia back then is your modern day Iran and maybe surrounding minion states, which we're seeing right now. So it's as if this is more of the powder keg right now rather than the Ukraine one. But both are obviously important because Russia is also in the epicenter of the prophecies regarding all that's coming. And I know people might be watching and think this is doom and gloom, this is scary. I've just come back from pilgrimage and I'm still at peace with taking all this in. That's when you allow the Lord in such a open, loving way. He'll take you through it to get to that point. And no matter what's going on in the world, it really is amazing to still keep a great deep sense of peace. And it just comes through living the messages. But I do think we're seeing the prime prophecies, the ones that really are clear, repetitive, and from several good sources of saints and mystics over the past century and a bit more, where it's all coming together now. Marie-Julie Jahenny, Blessed Anne Catherine Emmerich, Blessed Elena Aelio, Fatima, Akita, Garabandal. It's all there and we can see it all happening. And I don't know when what's going to happen or how. And I've said to you before in previous videos, what's the spark? What's the spark? France is to be the spark, according to Marie-Julie Jehani. I think I did a slide on that. Um, but the other spark maybe as well. I mean, what's going to make Islam rise up? You're always thinking that attack on Mecca or Iran. But what happens if they focus on that Golden Dome right now? Because all this temple talk and the red heifers as well, just another thing getting into the mix. I haven't found too much in Google with that, but I found plenty on YouTube. And again, it's like, well, how much is this to be believed? Because it's not the first time Israel's tried to come about with this sacrifice. So I'm not one to comment on that, but I just kind of sense if Israel is sweeping back the Gaza Strip the way it has done the last 6 months, now it's moving its southern troops up to the north because of all that's happening with Hezbollah.
Mhm.
It's like Israel has been surrounded with its enemies in all fronts, and more's coming. And surely this is a point, sooner or later, we're going to see God having to step in. Is that when we would see the illumination of conscience? But I know we hold on to the Pope going to Moscow still. But I think it's just a case of waiting and seeing it, observing, unless you've got more knowledge and what you're waiting for next, according to any timeline or that.
I'm, I agree. You know what I find most alarming, Mark? And again, I still believe completely that the general message of heaven for the Blessed Virgin Mary in all the apparitions places you mentioned and others is a message of hope, of survival. But what alarms me the most is that God loves us, undeservingly so, so much, with such tenderness. He sends His Holy Mother again and again with an imploring and loving voice to warn us. We've discussed this, you and I, many times on your show. But He uses now means, every single means, to implore His children to change direction, to make them understand, yes, even with sensationalism, to make them understand it's time now to respond to my call of conversion. There will be a last attempt, and that will be the crown jewel, as the Americans say, which will be the warning, what Father Michel calls the elimination of conscience. That expression that Christine Watkin used, I found out, she took it when she was working at the time with Father Michel. But Father Michel calls it the illumination of conscience or the new Pentecost. No? So that will be the last time. And at that moment, everyone will know that there is such a thing as a God, and that Jesus Christ not was, is his son, and that the Catholic Church is the church he founded. Unlike all the other Christian churches, which, with all due respect, and God knows that I have immense respect for all the Protestant church, all, no? They are all admirable in their own ways. But nevertheless, the only Roman Catholic Church, the only church founded by Christ, was the Roman Catholic Church, by Christ through Peter. The Calvinists, Calvin. The Lutherans, Luther, imperfect, sinful man. The Anglicans, with all due respect to your charming and lovely wife, it's been founded by King Henry VIII, huh? And so on and so forth. The only Christian church founded by the Son of Christ is indeed the Roman Catholic Church. And I can't imagine for one moment that Christ was unable to foresee the future or even made a mistake. Notwithstanding, uh, it seems that he's knocking at the door desperately, the doors of our consciences to change now, and preferably before the warning, the illumination of conscience. Because when that will happen, yes, there will be massive conversion, but for a very limited amount of time. And then 2/3 of those who would have converted will return to the mediocrities of the yesteryears by using for a pretext the findings that the scientists have made of these solar flares that would have made mass confusion and how would you say in English? I always forget the term. Mass,
Hysteria, hysteria.
yes,
Mm.
they would have had them have hysteria or imagine things. No, so it appears that according to prophecy, there will be 2/3 of those who will return and who will abandon the newly found faith, and then shortly after, everything will rumble down. I know that for a fact that for Garabandal, and we are all waiting for the announcement that is to be made by Conchita Gonzalez. Her sole representative is indeed Glenn Hudson, who's a terrific chap, terrific, admirable. I like him immensely. No, so we must keep an eye open and an ear open as to what he will, what I suspect will be very soon, what he will declare on behalf of Conchita Gonzalez. No, and but also I think that the events I told you before, um, this year for me will be pivotal. I can't imagine, based on everything I know, what I've read, what I've studied. It appears to me that something will happen this year, which will be pivotal. It will be the cornerstone, the beginning of everything. And I know that when I spoke with Father Michel, um, he confirmed. He confirmed that particular fact. That is why last at the end of the last year, I told you this story as well with the message of the December 31st, which we mentioned and read on your channel. At that time, Father Michel called us in the hotel in Orlando. I offered a luxury holiday to my monkeys, to my two children and my wife, simply because I'm not certain that they will be able to do that again.
Mm.
And Father Michel understood. I told him, and he wanted to see us to give us a blessing on the 1st of January, and which we received on Zoom. And then we spoke afterwards in French that the cities of the jungle, my children would not understand. And this is, we're living in a time that will be used as a point of reference, not only in the books of history, but as a point in time in the history of humanity. That is why we are called more than ever now to try really to change our lives and to respond, to accept Christ as the Son of God, as our Savior. For indeed, according to Father Michel, all those who will respond positively and firmly to this illumination of conscience, to this new Pentecost, those will be saved, not only spiritually, but physically as well.
Yeah.
Maybe we could have another show on how to prepare, you and I. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. Spiritually, mentally, prepper, anything at all. But I would definitely say that's the thing I got from Medjugorje is the spiritual preparedness. Doesn't matter if the whole of hell is ready at your front door, ready to attack. They can't do anything unless God permits it. And if you've got Almighty God protecting you and they're within a millimeter away from you, you have nothing to fear because you have God.
Exactly.
That's the way I
Eh,
think. We have our
You and
sacraments,
I feel
we have our blessed relics and all sacramentals and all that stuff, and we love the sacraments of the faith because the faith is absolute paramount to everything. And no matter of all the stuff that were spoke about at the start, I know some people find, oh, it's. I used to leave a knot in my stomach as well years ago when I first read some. I first started reading this, but I've either become desensitized to that over the years, or it's grace at work inside because I chose to love the messages. I pursued Our Lady of Fatima. I loved the movie. I read the book. Oh, I wish she could just appear again somewhere in the world. And I discovered she did in Garabandal and Akita, which I believe in. I thought, what about now? And then the way God just makes things work, there was Medjugorje. And it was a good year of seeing the fruits of Medjugorje through people who had been and converted, introduced me to a great community where people changed their lives because of it, to prayer groups and everything else. And every single one of them just put God at the start of their day. They put him in his, they put God in his heart, in their hearts every single day, living the messages. And what are the messages? Pray, convert, fast, read scriptures, go to monthly confession, peace. And I know some people leave the odd message about, oh, Medjugorje's been debunked, or it's a fraud, or they've got this about the bishop or that. Xavier has already covered Medjugorje in his book, Revelations. I've also had some good speakers on the channel, such as Anne Vucic, who his family near Medjugorje. She grew up knowing all about Medjugorje when she was born over there in Bosnia. She's done interpretations for the visionaries. She's made it clear there have been three bishops since the Medjugorje apparitions. So when people say which bishop, they say the bishop debunked it, which bishop are you talking about? What about the Conference of Yugoslavia in 1991? What about the fact that it's got shrine status now and the fact that the apostolic guardian is there from the Pope himself? So the fruits are in abundance with priesthood and religious and all that. And so without rambling on, Xavier, and giving you the chance, then maybe we could see that positive thing of all the bad stuff's going on, whether it's tsunamis, earthquakes, nuclear war, World War III. I find all these ones popping up in modern days, like even the last 10, 20 years. There are a lot of war, doom and glooms, messages constantly coming from these sources. But you could draw a line over that. Medjugorje is so different. But look at the
Mhm.
fruit of Medjugorje. Look at the magnitude of Medjugorje. And remember, those visionaries, at least one of them, has to reveal those secrets in time. And the third secret that was allowed to be made public is also the permanent sign described at Garabandal, which comes third in line. So I'm suspicious, or I'm open to the idea that the other two things that come first at Garabandal may just be the first two secrets of Medjugorje. But the focus with Medjugorje isn't on the secrets or all the doom and gloom. It's living the life. And I had a great book, Fire Within, accompanying me for spiritual reading and the Carmelite spirituality, St. Teresa and St. John of the Cross. Everything I'm starting to see living the messages in Medjugorje, everything's written in this book. It's the indwelling of the Holy Trinity that she's trying to get us infused with through living these messages. It's the fact that we become co-redeemers with the Lord through our participation in the life of the Trinity. And how do we get there? Love the messages and you'll start finding out. So when you've been to Medjugorje, what's your take on all this in terms of what's Our Lady planning for us really? We see what's coming. God's about to step in, and that's where the hope is, I believe. What do you think?
I've been to Medjugorje, yes, and I've been following it since, goodness gracious, since probably 1982, 1983, the very first time I've ever heard of it. I was a boy, no, and it was already starting to make a lot of noise thanks to Father Laurentin. And it was impressive. It was still under Yugoslavia that was communist. So these children were exposing themselves to martyrdom and their families as well. So that gave us all tremendous, an impression of tremendous credibility. When I went there, I was shocked. I was already aware, rather, of all the calumniations and the defamations, the accusations and the attacks against the visionaries there, accusing them of all sorts of opportunism and so on and so forth, this kind of mediocrity. But I went there and I wanted to see for myself. I went there with family, with my future wife at the time and with her mother. No. Um, so we went there and I did ask for a personal sign from the gospel, which I'm not going to share here. It's too personal, but I got it. But despite it all, there was two things that particularly impressed me the most. First of all, um, remembering what Father Laurentin always used to say, the only criteria that our Lord gave us when he was walking on the earth was to always judge the the tree by the fruits it produces.
Mm.
The fruits I saw in Medjugorje, like you, Mark, were extraordinary. I could see non-ending lines of faithful begging to be heard in confession. And poor monks, priests, listening and exhausted from the morning, the wee hours of the morning until sunset, no, sundown. Uh, these men were relentless. They were not tired of listening to all what these people had to confess. No, non-stop from the wee hours of the morning till the evening. And then at night, to see the countless multitudes, even inside and out of St. James Church, because there was not enough room. The faithful on their knees in adoration, singing, praying before the Blessed Sacrament. I said this in other shows and I said it on yours, no? If this came from the devil, well, blast it all, Mark, then it's certain the devil has suicidal tendencies because that's exactly what he doesn't want to happen. And it happens not just on one particular instance, all the time. To damage Gautier is unquestionably one of the most popular marine apparition or site and place of great pilgrimage. And the status today of the Catholic Church has increased um, despite Pope Francis' um, animosity against Medjugorje, which is that, because let's remember, Pope Francis publicly declared on his plane, on his return from, I think, a pilgrimage he did in Fatima on May the 14th. I don't remember what year, but he said it clearly that he doesn't believe in the today's apparition of Medjugorje, and that the Virgin is like a post woman bringing little message of no consequences on a daily basis or on a monthly basis. That's it all. Despite that statement, the before the arrival of his Eminence Cardinal Fernandez, the church declared Medjugorje as being authorized as being a place of pilgrimage, pilgrimages that could be now organized with parish priests, parish pilgrimages. This is one step below formal recognition. So, despite the aggressivity of Pope Francis, despite of the aggressivity of the local bishop, who just always followed the example of their predecessors, no? Medjugorje is still increasing in popularity and in spiritual results. I've seen it with my eyes. I give testimony today. No? Now, I just want to tell you, I'm switching with your permission. I forgot to tell you something earlier, a few moments ago, regarding Father Michel Rodrigue, who also is another another case of great controversy. But I think it's pretty much been resolved. He explained himself, and his explanation are valid, since I can give testimony of that as well. But Father Michel has a message for your viewers. May I be permitted to echo it?
Absolutely, yes.
The message is this: he's receiving multitudes of letters and phone calls, messages, and he's overwhelmed from the four corners of the world, including from England, Scotland, and Ireland in particular as well. So that's, I suspect, thanks to you, Mark. And he asked me to ask your faithful, your viewers, to please, for the time being, to avoid calling him, because he's forced to put an automatic response on his email machine, no, and to tell you all that he blesses everyone who seeks for his intercession and who seek for his prayers and recommendations. He will, without an exception, he will pray for all of them. And the day will come when he will come again to the internet uh, to warn people to prepare. And that is why he does not appear anymore, because after the last apparition he made on, I think it was on the Christine Bacon show, right after Monique Turnbull's, right after John Henry Weston, in last summer of 2023, God the Father asked him not to appear anymore before the time will call for everyone to be told to prepare. So I will ask Father Michel not only to appear on the first three shows that I mentioned to you earlier, but to yours and a couple more perhaps when the time comes. But I promise that you'll be one of the very first.
Oh, wonderful. It'd be very humbling to say the least if that was going to happen, and not just for Father Michel to come on, but if he's been instructed truly by God himself, and I'm one of the few he comes on, I think you probably have to help pick me up from the ground. Because for me,
No,
it's always for God.
no.
It has to be for God. Because you can't fool God thinking this is for me or any self-pride or anything else. Yeah, it's great to see people coming on. It was great to see people approach me in Medjugorje. Had people from Ireland to Singapore coming up to me and saying, I watch your show. And it's like, I just see as the fact that if that's spreading the faith, if that's casting the nets to bring people to the Lord in any way, shape, or form, then God's will be done, you know. So I just look at the fact that if things are going to happen very soon, the next couple of years anyway, what's the point even having the notion that you're going to make this into some sort of business? We're going to be fleeing for the hills.
No,
Okay.
quite so.
No, but yeah,
You're very.
it'd be very humbling. It'd be very humbling to have him on, to say the least.
I think you're a very decent fellow. I would not say so if I didn't think so. You're a very decent fellow, you and the likes of John Henry Weston, Luis Roman Padre Monique Turnbull, Christine Bacon, and others. No, Doug Berry from the G Force and the father, and so many others that we've been working with. What makes you extraordinary is your accent. I'm not talking the Scottish accent, but you have a true accent of authenticity, and you lack completely um, misplaced pride. You have a very natural humility, which gives you credibility, at least from my observation. And I've been interviewed by a lot of hosts. You have a great deal of humility. You're very kind. Nothing is plastic with you, and no, with any of the other hosts I mentioned. And you follow the example of Saint John the Baptist. You try to diminish so as to make the message from heaven increase. And that is the accent, is the proof, is the print of heaven. You have a mission. I have no authority to tell you, to tell who has a mission, who doesn't. Of course, I do not. But it appears to me that you do. And you have to continue. And I do hope that your viewers will continue to support the terrific chap that you are, your work. And anyway, you have the MacLean clan on your side. So how could you possibly fail, laddie?
Well, the McLeans apparently historically were defenders of the church, the faith.
There you go.
Yeah. As soon as I found out my whole name meaning, I was like, warrior for the Lord. Xavier, it's been great. I know we've covered quite a lot of bits in there because there's so many things happening in the world, but I think finishing off on that note, knowing that when these things do come to pass, and the Father Michelle will give the message to prepare, when the warning comes, when other things come, if they're all contained with the Medjugorje secrets, I like to believe that Our Lady's walking us through it because the secret has to be revealed in time. And then I know Mariana and the priest of her choosing, Father Peter Lubitschik, if I pronounce his name correctly, they fast for 7 days. Then he announces it to the world, and 3 days later, the event occurs. So we might get notice of the warning. We might get notice of the miracle from Medjugorje and Conchita. We might get notice of other things that we aren't thinking of or we're not aware of. So I like to believe our Blessed Mother is walking us through it. And remember, she also says when these events come to pass, Satan's power is gone. So we're coming at the end of that century that God granted them. And we're living in these times for that. God's chosen us. Every one of us, you as well watching this video, you're alive today because of God's deliberate act to create you as you are for now. Just as what the saints wish they could have been born in these days. And I'm hearing that a lot as well. The saints wish they could have been born for these days and these times. We have got the chance for every grace available that God's pouring out on us, on humanity right now. Grab everything you can, take it for everything, and be ready for when Our Lady calls on us to step up. Did you get an amen for that?
Amen.
Would you like to finish final words and maybe a little prayer if you don't mind?
Not at all. I simply would ask again, with as much humility as I'm able to gather, to pray, please, for this gentleman, for Mark McLean, for his mission. He is today unquestionably one of the very few modern times knights who represents ever so gloriously his origins, his culture, his faith. Pray that it continues successfully. For his family, his lovely wife. Please, if it's not an imposition, I ask as well for your prayers and for your prayers on my family and on our work. And also, I ask that you pray for, with your permission, Mark, for John Henry Weston, who is also being very much attacked for his propagating the faith, for Michael Matt, and for the Union of the Clans. And voilà, let us all stay in union prière, in union in prayer. And merci beaucoup for your kind attention. And thank you, Mark, for honoring me yet again into your splendid show.
Perfect French gentleman as always, Xavier. The pleasure and the honor is all mine, I can assure you. Thank you very much. Would you like to finish with a quick prayer?
Yes, shall we do an Ave Maria in Latin? Would that be all right?
Yeah, go
Or
for it.
English?
Well, I can remember half of the Ave Maria. My Latin's a little sketchy since I left seminary.
Let's do it in English. And it cost me to do that. No, I'm kidding. Oh, no, in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
Mary, conceived without sin,
Pray for us who have recourse to thee.
in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Thank you very much, Mark. You're terrific.
Thank you, Xavier. And for everyone else, you know what to do. Thumbs up, like, share, get it out there. Cast the nets, get the souls in. Keep them looking at the videos. And also remember Xavier's book, Revelations, The Hidden Secret Messages and Prophecies of the Blessed Virgin Mary, is one that you must have, I can assure you. And until next time, take care and God bless.